welcome out everybody to our Under the Banner of Heaven discussion, discussion of episode 5 of Under the Banner of Heaven from Three Martini Solution Podcast. Ryan, Casey, Jessica, Kyle, and this one was quite the episode. I feel like they all have something in them that are like, wow, and this one didn't disappoint. But Jessica, you just before we hit record, you were saying that this one was quite the episode for you, eh?
Yeah, I can't wait to get back to what we're really doing.
Something more lighthearted than that.
A little bit more lighthearted than the intensity of episode 5. But honestly, I just need to hear you guys. Like, I have so much that I'm just going to be mums the word. I absolutely need to hear from you.
Well,
more
then
than
that
me.
makes me want to ask you questions.
Shocker. Shocker.
Yeah.
So what is it about this one that has you a little bit speechless? Is it just everything? Or
12 and 14-year-old?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was that?
The fact that he's trying to consummate marriage by having sex with his stepdaughters who are 12 and 14.
Oh,
like that's
okay.
Wait, come in with all punches, Kyle.
I was just saying, like, that was the most disturbing. There's a ladder of things that are upsetting, but that was the top rung, probably.
Right. I think so. It was for me too, Jessica. Like, it was difficult to watch. Like, there were some times because I was watching with Emily and I'm like, this is just hard to set through. Everybody was doing it, not because everything was good. Just the subject matter itself was just hard to sit through and watch as a piece of entertainment because it doesn't feel good. And you're like, oh, but it's there for a reason. I think it's supposed to make you feel uncomfortable. It's supposed to think about, this is how crazy this whole thing is, right? When they're doing it.
I don't know if it was a coping strategy, but I would like to take a nod to the, I don't even know the Hollywood terms, but costume design and the setting. Like, if this isn't 1980s perfect styling when it comes to the decor and the house and all of that, that's what I started to channel in on in this episode, just because I had to focus on something different. And I really feel like costume design and the setting crew really did a nice job of capturing, I paid attention to the pictures that were hung on the wall just because I had to see past what was actually in the forefront
I agree with you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But there wasn't that much on the wall for Ron's home, right? Where Ron and Matilda were. Are you talking about the Bishop Lowe discussion?
Bishop Lowe and Brother Brady.
Yeah.
And the whole lemonade and the kids and the whole, all of that. Okay, let's start with Brother Brady, because
So, are we only talking about set design for this episode? Is that what we've decided on?
I think that's the safest way to go. I really do.
There's some stuff that happened, but people should really look at the set design. That's what's the most important thing about this episode. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What was it? Brother Brady?
I liked Brother Brady because I think he showed that, and this isn't exclusive to Mormonism, but it's that prosperity gospel, right? Yeah. That if you're righteous, then you get money and things, right? And you have to have this appearance that it's because of our religious faith that we are so successful and we are beautiful and we have nice things and whatever. And we want to like Instagram influencers, there's a TikTok girl who goes through the Mormon mommy blogger Instagram people, and it's really an interesting discussion of that.
Not found her yet.
Oh, I'll send you a link. She's great. Emily knows who she is. I've sent it to Emily. But there's that, and you can see that, but you can also see how he's interpreting it, right? He has to keep up this veneer, but then he's going to keep his super secret, his deep doctrine study with his buddies that he thinks is harmful but sort of edgy, right? Because he thinks he's too smart for him. He's too smart by half. You're like, okay, whatever, dude. Like he's, and he's just pretending that he's like so smart or whatever, which, Pyrie sees right through him in like about half a second. Yep. I'm not sure Taba ever even took 2 seconds to see right through him. Like he's like, oh yeah. But then you see his wife and how she does it, right? Like how she is just seemingly, who knows if she really is or not, oblivious, right? I loved when she comes out in with the lemonade and she's like, I'm sorry, it has brown sugar, so it's not as pretty. And I'm like, oh, lived it. Like,
something rings true here. Yeah, she didn't miss a beat. Didn't miss a beat. Yeah.
That was an interesting commentary on how some, we talked about that, like it used to be the province of the high priest group, right? That's where the deep doctrine would be discussed, and deep doctrine was code for crazy shit.
100% true.
Because it was safe there, right? The high priest group was usually older men who'd been around for a while, so they'd heard all the regular lessons, ad nauseum, where you have to like sanitize things for, all the people who, weren't ready for the heavy, deep stuff. But then in high priest group, then everyone would show up with their like special spiritual like projects or favorite topics that they, where are the 12 tribes today, or the 10 lost tribes today type stuff. What's the date of the second coming type stuff. Like that's where they wanted to really discuss it for, whatever. That's him, that's what he's going to do. And I believe he's actually a real person, because he was talking about they were talking about the buried treasure in Salem or whatever, the gold mine thing or whatever. I mean, those folk myths are around. But I do, when we get to it though, I do have a personal family story connection, because apparently when the investigation of the murders was going on, my dad and his friend were actually out in Nevada, and they saw them in the back of a truck.
Oh, wow.
So, wow. Get followed up with my dad. This is my mom told me, because I was asking my mom some of what she remembers from that time. And then, so I have to follow up with my dad.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so Dad, I hear you saw Ron and Dan Lafferty in the back of a truck. Tell me more.
Yeah.
I absolutely want to hear more. That's beautiful foreshadowing.
Right.
So tune in next week.
Well, nod to last week when I realized it was a true story. I mean, that's what's really making this pill hard to swallow, guys, is realizing that it's true. I mean, yes.
Well, it's sort of true, right? That was one of the things that in the article this week that, Peggy Fletcher Stack put in the Tribune. She's really good about, but she does it in a really good way. Like it's incredibly well written. I mean, she's good at what she does. She talks about why Black made some of the choices he did. Like he purposely chose, like if you know, it's called Rockford Falls or something different instead of American Fork. So he purposely makes the city fictional. He's trying to stay true to some of the things, but he actually did. So he interviewed Dan Lafferty. He interviewed Alan. So he interviewed Brenda's sister. Like he talks about all the people he actually interviewed and talks about. And he's like, look, some people are saying, hey, it's not really like my, whatever family member X really was. And he's like, you can't ever do that in drama. No one's ever going to portray a character in the way that you remember them, because they're special to you. Like it's just right. You can't do that. You can't.
Your experience, not how everyone else will receive it.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense, and because I said before this, I started listening to the audiobook, and the very first part of that book is just kind of a real plain fact-only recitation of the timeline of what happened and when, and you can tell from that, how even from that brief first part of the book, how different it is from the TV show. And I'll save it for when we're doing an episode about the differences in what the book says and that kind of stuff. But I think that it was probably smart to make it one step away from just a dramatization of the book or something like that. But when you guys were talking about Brother Brady, the first thing that I thought of is I've met people like that. They're just so saccharine, sweet. Like it's really hard to believe anything you're saying because everything just seems so put on and disingenuous. But then I've met people who I've been around them enough to realize that kind of saccharine sweetness is their personality.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm just being too harsh on some people. But the thing that stood out to me with him wasn't the prosperity doctrine, whatever you call it, Casey. But it does kind of make sense once you say it. But I was thinking about how it showed he was very still sexist, right? I mean, just he's very sexist. He just kind of doesn't want to be too overt about it because, hey, I'd like to go to the secret group and talk about all of our sexist bullshit and still have things okay on the home front because my wife's going to call me out on it if she ever finds out I really believe that kind of stuff. And it's just kind of this duplicity of a person who's just like, okay, you can still have this facade of a nice, sweet, whatever sort of person and just be a total a-hole and a total, scumbag, have these kind of scumbag views. And, it's just kind of like that sort of person you do meet from time to time. And it's almost the more that they're trying to show you one thing, they're kind of the other. And as the episode goes on and he starts revealing more and more and more about what he knows, you realize how he wasn't, the story that he told his wife was so different than what the reality was.
And I feel like he tries to do it while still like the entire time playing off like the reason he's lying to people or not telling the whole truth the first time is to protect someone else. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, honey, I'm going to crack this case wide open. I'm going to help them.
Right.
Or, hey, go make the lemonade so I can then tell them the true story. Like, it's always trying to make himself seem more important or feel like a bigger person because I'm not trying to lie. I'm not being duplicitous. I'm just trying to protect her. I don't want her to know everything that's happening, or I don't want to say what's really happened in front of Alan, or like, I don't want to tell what Ron really could do or what Dan really could do in front of their brother. I'm just trying to be a good guy.
Right. Yeah.
Which
he's always trying.
I don't know if he's so much more of a good guy in the sense that he knows that he says, if you see I've struck gold here, I don't want to screw it up. He knows in his mind, he's not worthy of her. Like, she really deserves someone better than him because he sees through his own lies. And so he's trying to pretend to lie. And I love that. What I liked about it is that she probably is genuinely saccharine, whatever you want to call it. Like,
that nice of a person.
She's just herself, and she is super nice to him and super supportive. And he doesn't want to screw it up, but he thinks by not screwing it up, he just needs to lie to her. Who knows where she really is in all of this? But like, he uses misogyny to keep his position because he feels insecure about himself. Like,
you guys, I have a totally different read on it.
Okay.
Oh, this is great.
This episode is the episode of the anti-hero female throughout it. Like, it starts with Dan's wife sacrificing a lot for her babies.
Yep.
And then you go to Ron's wife, who literally in the depths of total fear does not let him take their son out of the house, grabs a knife, bring that baby back to me. If anything, the underlying, like, shout it from the rooftops of this episode was, I am woman, hear me roar, I don't give a fuck. And you even see that with Sister Brady, because Sister Brady was playing those detectives the second they walked through the door. So while she might have put on her special little face and oh, sure, honey, let me go grab the lemonade. That bitch didn't miss a beat. She knew exactly what was happening. Are you guys fucking kidding me? Like, this is the plight of the Mormon woman, which is always to take the back fucking seat, even though they're fully aware of everything that's going on. And the one scene where Alan's wife, it kind of sucks that I don't know any of their names. I just know those.
I am anonymous woman. Hear me roar.
Talking about misogyny.
I know. Don't take that. Well, don't totally ridicule me for that.
You know, those amazing women. Alan's wife and this other guy.
Brenda.
After sacrament meeting, exactly. Bishop Lowe's wife. Oh, Sister Lowe. Sister Lowe. That's her name. Right? Fuck off. Are having their own little meeting. I'm telling you, this is the underlying thing with, in my experience, women in the church, is that let the men think they have a lot of shit going on, but we are never not in the loop. Like, we get every hit and beat. And so for me, like, once we got to Sister Brady, I was like, this is the episode that shows, even in the midst of all of this bullshit, women will still roar and do the harder shit, because Ron and Dan and fucking all these motherfuckers, like, listen, that isn't the hard plight. The plight of their wives and what they stand up to do is truly what I walked away from the episode. So sorry, I'll get off my soapbox now.
No. I agree with Kyle Lowe's wife. I think that was
Wow.
We should change our to Bishop and Sister Lowe.
At least they're not assholes. I'm so waiting for them to be assholes in this episode.
I'm sorry.
And, I mean, they are. You call CPS. I mean, that's fucking hands down the right thing to do. But at least they're not pieces of shit. Totally.
I agree with Jessica 100%. I didn't look at it through that lens, but I think she's right. I think we see some women in some terrible situations stepping up to the plate to do the right thing. It's debatable whether Sister Brady is doing the right thing, but she may not know all the shit her husband was doing, but she knows the police are there to talk to him, so it ain't good, right? Yeah, and so she's going to be. So
she will show up and show out for her man.
Right.
She will. That's what she did.
Yeah. Well, it's soft power, right? How women wield soft power, and how many men are ignorant and oblivious to that soft power. I mean, and how often that soft power, they keep it in reserve in really hard situations. I mean, because like Matilda and Diana, that was heartbreaking to see them in those situations and the sacrifice they had to do. And of course they did it. Just the image of the screw in the window was enough. And then like them trying to do it with a spoon.
Oh my God.
Like,
yeah.
So much visually there, like, because those girls never spoke ever. They were always hidden. They never spoke. And just to see that spoon, like, but then also to see the mom show up with a screwdriver and she's like, hey, just and they never have to say anything, right? Because that's also plausible deniability, right? What did your mother tell me? Nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There's all of this layers of all of that they're the preparation, and this is how we operate in this world. We all know how dangerous it is and stuff. But what's interesting is those girls, where did they run? They run to the church.
Right.
And so they talk to Bishop Lowe. And what does Bishop Lowe do?
You're right.
Right.
Well, and I was going to bring up, and I wanted to know, maybe Jessica, you remember this as well, but I remember my time in the church, there being, it was changed over time, but there was a point in time back in the 80s and after that, where the idea of domestic violence, and I mean, child incest is a different thing. But there was a sense of, well, that's, we're not going to call the police. We're not going to call the police if we could in any way, shape, or form handle it ourselves. And and so whether it's domestic violence or something else going on in the home, it could be child abuse. I'd like to think that it wouldn't include something like sexual abuse, but maybe it would. But those things, I don't think the church always used to be very good at calling the proper authorities when that stuff came up. Maybe they aren't still, but I think that they've changed over time.
There's lots of entities that still have a hard time involving child protective services, like in 2022. So I feel like it's a jump for a lot of people when you work in the field of being a mandated reporter, and like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. The second you think, should I call, means you should, right? So like I don't think that's the churches alone, but the church's ego or whatever to think that they can solve it in-house is such bullshit, and to truly put children in danger. I mean, at least Bishop Lowe didn't immediately call Dan in, right? And be like, I got your girls here, let's talk this through. Like that, I mean, that would be the worst scenario, right? So that didn't happen. But you could see, and he knows that he didn't do right, but he was in his position, rock in a hard place of, how do I do what I know what is morally right, but also stay in good standing with the church, because the church wants to handle it in-house. Well, and so this
is another good time to remember, these are volunteers. These are not even the mandated reporter. I mean, you two are like with teachers and stuff, like you get training.
Like, you don't get to work with kids until you go through that training.
Don't get training. Exactly. And so that conflict between how do I do my job calling, right, to this religious organization that has the keys to my salvation, right? How do I do that? How do I balance that with what do I do with these kids who are like, what do you do when the family that you glorify so much is falling apart before your eyes and you don't have training or tools to deal with it? It has improved in the past, 50 years. And also, the church's history of like, the government being adversarial and not helping them. Sure. Like they come by it some semi-honestly, but still, right. How long, it's still no excuse for not taking care of kids and putting them in danger when you should know better. Like those decisions should be.
Well, and it feels like they feel like excommunication is the worser punishment than being prosecuted by the DA. Like, like being kicked out of your church is the lesser of the consequence, or I'm sorry, the more severe consequence than actual, like losing your children.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think
that heavy thing.
I think the underlying message, though, that the pressure that bishop felt was, I think when Taba kind of pushes him on it, like, I can't believe you would not call Child Protective Services, and he says, I did as the church instructed us. It was looking at Pyrie, like, you get this. I was doing as the church tells us to do, and fell back on that. And
that quote he had was just, I was doing what I thought was right. And Taba comes back with, right for who?
Right.
And then he goes into like, well, right for the church. Like, obviously, what do you mean right for
obviously,
like,
right.
Obviously, I'm doing what's right for the church. Like, and then that's when Brother Pyrie's like, he's like, you get me. And
yeah, but what's right for the church is also right for Heavenly Father and the greater good that oversees all of that. Like, you can see how there's this manipulation and this doctrine in that helps good people come to
bad outcomes,
be bad actors,
like these conflicted situations.
Are people that get callings, bishops people in the priesthood, are they still volunteers? I mean, like, I know with really, like, because there's billions of dollars in the Mormon treasury. I mean, there's
billions.
Right, billions. Yeah, many billions of dollars. Like, you would think like that they would move into like, I don't know, like trying to help. Like,
well, at a certain point,
Catholics
they
aren't
start
great,
to get
but they
paid.
still pay priests. Like, that is your job as a priest, so that you, for right or wrong, like, you get continual teachings and learnings and stuff like that. But
there's paid positions in the church. Like, if you're one of the 12, you're
there's
paid.
12 paid positions.
Oh no, there's
more than that. But like, I don't want to.
Well, no. So the church used to say there's no paid clergy and there's no paid clergy, and I think in the last 5 or 10 years, documents, however they were obtained, came out, and the church kind of had to acquiesce to the fact that no, there are certain church positions that they receive what they call it. They don't say they're paid; they call it a stipend. It's like a 6-figure stipend. It's a pretty good stipend, but it's a stipend. They are paid. I don't think they can get away with legitimately at the local level. They can say there's no paid clergy because at the bishop level, at the stake presidency level, and everybody underneath that, nobody's paid there. And that's what, in my personal opinion, that's where the good work is done. That's where you're going to find good people. I mean, this show is showing kind of some bad actors in some of those roles. And it's doing a good job, I think, of showing even good people making some bad choices because they were taught that way, or they feel like that's the proper thing to do within the church. But there's another side of it where those people are out there and they are helping people. They're the ones that are truly like, whatever good name the church has, it was built up at that ground floor level with those sisters, as saccharine sweet and maybe disingenuous as they are. They step in, oftentimes when somebody really needs some help and helps them, and men that give up their time and money and put their families off to the side for a certain period of time to just go help somebody out. So there are really good things that people do, but no, those are also the ones that aren't getting paid.
Right.
And those are the ones that get all the glory. Like I think there's a fair amount of hero worship that goes on within the Mormon church. And I'm getting off on a tangent. I'm sorry. What else do you want to discuss, Casey?
There were so many scenes, right? Like this was an episode that seemed like 5 episodes. There were so many different pieces that
before, like, going back to that spoon in the window, or the screw in the window, like, and that interaction, like, I was picturing Handmaid's Tale when the lady or whatever came up and tried to help the main character escape from that, and like she had her daughter, and like it was so reminiscent of, I mean, completely like fictionalized tale of like, this is like the embodiment of like spousal abuse or like sexual trauma, where like that type of thing, like you see it fictionalized so much, and then to see it portrayed in still fictional, but like a much less straight from the imagination of someone, like to see that type of thing. And like, I think that was the hardest part about that whole like scene, was like, he wasn't like the bad guy. He wasn't like your villain that is normally portrayed as the person that is doing that. He justified himself. Like, he was there and trying to justify it. It wasn't just like everyone agrees that this is a horrible person and that's why he's doing these terrible things. It was like, let's take a step back. Let's hear my side and let's do that. And it wasn't where
should get the phone. That's super. I apologize for that, you guys. No. But I also like in that whole story, the fact that the bishop low threat of it also shows, for me, a lot of my experience in the Mormon church of really good people that were also like, nope, excommunicated, don't get to do that. and whether they handled the situation exactly how they should, at least there was this like hard line in the church. An excommunication is a death sentence. Like there's nothing more severe you can actually give. So the fact that that was a piece of it, I apologize, you guys.
It's fine.
I don't know what else to say, but that for me in a book or series that is trying to like tell this story, the fact that there's also this sprinkle of that speaks more true to me, being in the religion from my birth up to now. Is testament that you can't overgeneralize one person's set of beliefs to everybody's, right? Because Bishop Lowe is a good person. Sister Lowe is a good person, and they saw that this man was too far gone and had to be excommunicated, and still tried to have the discussion with Ron and still tried, right? But also when a line was crossed, a line was crossed. And I think that speaks to some of the evolution of the Mormon church when Black men were able to hold the priesthood, and them able to see like shifts and changes is testament that this religion is not just solely based on fanatic crazies, but also has the core of some really good people who just want to be really good people.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, I agree, because I think what happens is the church is big enough and it relies on people at the ground level to interpret what they've been told. Realistically, there's the handbook that Casey, I think, mentioned in the last episode that gives some guidelines on what they should do. And it gets referred to quite often by people in leadership to say, well, I'd like to make this decision, but let's see if that's allowed. And if it is at all, then they'll do it, but sometimes it's not. But I think that when you have people, such a diverse group of people with different backgrounds and whatnot, trying to interpret it, you, as the centralized organization, not just this church, have to anticipate that people are going to interpret things to fit their own morality, their own ideas of way to do things. And I think that's what you see here. I think you see that character in that Bishop Lowe, who wants to do the right thing, wants to do everything, but is ultimately ruled by this one underlying thing, which is we need to protect the church. Right. Yeah. And so I think that I think it's a real thing to see a push and pull of somebody struggling with, how do I protect this church that I love, but also do the human thing to the human in front of me. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I often think about what does a good organization do to encourage dissent that is good dissent that moves you forward, right? Like you don't want somebody who's always challenging everything and basically just throws a wrench into everything that happens. But you also need someone saying, hey, what about, which, they portrayed Emma as that type of person, right? Many of these women were doing that, saying, hey, what about, but if you have an institutional structure that doesn't listen to them, that systemically like erases them, that's problematic. But then also what happens is then it gives people permission, like good people like Bishop Lowe, to then not think critically about what's going on, right? He did think, and he did know, hey, there is a policy and a procedure to excommunicate, like, hey, child marriage, polygamy, bad in the modern church. Okay, that was an easy thing. But then what do I do with these children? Oh, I can't trust the government. That's, I'm not going to put them into child protective services. Or when you see the stake president must protect church, I'm going to get these guys out of jail and release them into like my custody, like, you know, you can see that, right? Where's the productive dissent in that situation, right? Because you're going to have all these Brother Bradleys who are like, oh, I can't say anything. Oh, I can't say anything. And it's going to give them permission to not say something, which, you know, what's interesting is, but there are plenty of people who do speak up and be like, hey, I mean, started with, you know, Emma was maybe the first, and, you know, she sure hasn't been the last of people saying, hey, what about, can we make this better? Hey, what about, can we make this better? There's plenty of that.
I forgot Emma in my case of this is the like I am woman, hear me roar episode, because you see every shot back to it is Emma standing up against at every turn you could see her take a step back, and she doesn't. At every turn she pushes it a little bit forward. So she was the one lady I forgot, which
I mean, that's a good segue into talking about that historical portrayal.
I was going to ask,
because on one hand, Emma did take a public position against polygamy, and she did say things that she knew was not true, saying that Joseph never practiced polygamy. I mean, there's documentation that she did know. And she did agree to it for a short period of time. She was fundamentally opposed to polygamy, except for the short period of time when she was okay with it. But hey, I'm not criticizing her in whatever decision she chose to make to try and save her marriage, because that was super important to her. Well, what's interesting here, and this is where for me it is very clear that the historical flashbacks are through the Lafferty's fundamentalist eyes, because what this does is this gives credence to a conspiracy theory that Brigham Young had Joseph Smith murdered.
Okay.
That's what it doesn't say it explicitly, but that's a conspiracy theory that's out there. And there's actually like a current group that's pretty popular that's one of their big things.
Oh, really?
I have some former associates who are involved with it, and I'm like, oh, and anyway, I'm not even going to say their name because I'm not going to give them any oxygen.
So I was going to ask, like, I've heard a lot of crazy theories about different things, and I'd never heard that one where Brigham Young tried to have Joseph Smith removed so that he could then lead the church in the way he wanted to lead. And I don't know if there's any. I'm sure if you talk to the groups that believe in it, they'll show you the evidence. They'll show you where you need to read between the lines to figure out all that out.
Right. It's right, and that's what you have to do, because the thing is that, you know, anyway, yeah, there's lots of evidence. Brigham had his issues, but
see, and when I watched it with Kyle, who has no Mormon background, that was the one thing that you did recall, was that big Brigham Young took over the church and like was part of Joseph Smith's assassination, right?
Not necessarily assassination, but like he definitely, from what I've heard in the podcast and stuff like that, like he was definitely wanted Mormons to have a bigger place in the country than they did, and was willing to be a more aggressive, confrontational person with that, and did not necessarily like where Joseph Smith was taking it, and wanted it to be led in a different direction. And so if he was part of that or any of those things, like, I don't know about that, but like he definitely did not necessarily believe the direction that they were going under Joseph Smith was correct. He wanted to be a more, I don't know, outspoken, confrontational type of person.
Well, this is a lot of what I think of it is comes from, you know, growing up in the church and the few things I've learned thereafter. But I thought a fair representation of that relationship was that Brigham Young was fairly I don't know what's the right word, deferential to Joseph Smith when Joseph Smith was alive. Even if he preferred to do things differently, he wasn't super vocal about it. He was always paid Joseph the respect as being the prophet, et cetera, et cetera. However, when Joseph went away, I don't think that there was anybody going to stand in his way. He didn't think anybody was going to lead it better, as well as him. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I can and I've never, even when I was younger and fully in the church, I never really understood why people thought Brigham Young was that great, because there's so much bad stuff that is available that he did as well. But the one things that I think you could say that he did, which was very difficult, like he transplanted this fledgling group of saints who, my understanding was, after Joseph Smith died and all these splinter groups happened, they lost a good portion of their membership to other things. And so he has to rally them up again after their leader, their founder, he just gets assassinated, he gets killed, and says, got this great idea. We're going to go out into the wilderness to this desert, and we're going to start our own new Zion out there.
We're going to find it.
And then does it. So logistically and all this kind of stuff, you need a hard-headed person with some pretty good organizational skills to go out there and get that done.
Would you say a beehive of wives behind you?
I think if not for a beehive of wives,
Ryan. I mean, it's not bad.
Yes. If not for a beehive of wives.
If we've learned anything, all is possible as long as you have a beehive of wives with you.
Right? Get enough women behind you. But no, I agree with that Brigham Young thing, and I think being a big fan of history, like, it's rare to see a kind of cult of personality or a movement continue after the original leader has passed away. Like, you need that charismatic leader to kind of be able to retain that group and be able to continue moving them forward, which everything I've heard, and this show continues that, which is what Brigham Young was. He was able to bring people back together, even though there were those splinter groups, which is incredibly hard. If you like any history when massive people die, like,
but
it ruins that.
Is there the thread of truth that Emma hated Brigham Young?
Oh,
like that rings true, right? Like that part of the narrative is correct.
Yeah, he offered to marry her and she said no. He wanted to take property and she said no. She was all out to protect her family and stuff, so that's why she stayed behind Abu. And Brigham went to Utah and with his bully pulpit conducted a smear campaign, and it wasn't until 1980s that Emma started. Some brave Mormon researchers started saying, "Hey, we're going to look into Emma," and actually, there's a couple books. One of the first was like "Judge Me, Dear Reader," I think, that talks about Emma, and that started. Then her image was rehabilitated through historical research,
which certainly has been my experience with my family members and anyone that they hold her in high regard, which I don't recall in my upbringing or the stories that were told, but it certainly resonates as a big piece of them saying no, reformed is the wrong word, but we can see that she actually knew the true gospel way back when. And Kyle, I think you're right when you say, sometimes organizations, once that founding person goes away, whether they're killed or whatnot, they tend to peter out. The second leader doesn't have the same charisma, doesn't have the same thing, and Brigham Young did. And but the one thing that I think is true, and I'm not really as little as I know about a lot of things, I know even less about this, but it's my understanding that the way the church was ran and organized, and the day-to-day, things that were happening under Joseph, under Brigham, things changed. Even if some of the doctrine even changed a little bit, which is a whole nother topic. But little bit.
But just the way the expectations of what it meant to be a saint, what your obligations were to the church, I think it was a little bit looser under Joseph. It was you just if you were there and had a house and you were communing with the saints, all was fine and dandy. But under Joseph, we're going to start having some greater expectations on going to church and what different things. And I don't know all that much about it, but just that's my general impression. Am I even close, Casey?
Real quick,
No.
sorry, before you answer that, let me add another question to that as a person not brought up in the Mormonism at all. Is it like a living gospel? Like you have a living prophet. So do they, or can they change kind of what's supposed to happen as they're going through? Like could Brigham Young being that next prophet then be like, oh, I've heard a revelation. And so this is now actually what's supposed to happen. Like how does that work?
Okay, I'll let Casey answer.
You, Casey.
Oh, Brother Lowe, that is a great question. In fact, one might say that within Mormonism, that is the question because, you have, because the technical answer to that question is yes, right? And they sort of allude to that, which there can only be one, right? The way that it's often talked about officially in the church is like, you are supposed to get your own personal revelation that applies to you, and then whatever is your sphere of influence. Like, for example, over your family, Kyle, you are supposed to get revelation for your family.
I've had one. She keeps denying my revelation.
Okay, stop.
Sister Lowe, not a great woman.
Okay.
I will allow you to navigate those waters solo.
Right.
But
let's all pray for him.
There's only one person who can receive revelation for the entire church, which indeed all of the prophets successively have. Some of them have received more momentous type revelations than others. So, which, Brigham Young did change many things in the church. He definitely influenced polygamy. The way polygamy was practiced under Brigham Young definitely changed in Utah than it was in Nauvoo. I mean, admittedly, it was really early in Nauvoo, and things were pretty hot there anyway for lots of reasons. I think that, he did change the temple ceremony and some of the doctrines. Some of them have been disavowed. Then they may talk about like the Adam God doctrine that Brigham Young clearly taught. Also, I want to say he may have talked about blood atonement too, but I'm not. I don't know. I haven't read the Journal of Discourses recently. But like he definitely had an influence about that, and so he definitely did influence doctrine because Brigham is an organizer, right? He's not a visionary in the same way. He's a visionary organizer. So he's like, let's get this shit together. Let's get it organized. Let's get it codified. We have things to do.
That's a clear differentiation. Like that. Right. That helps a lot for me.
Well, but it's also, that's happened successively. Like the modern one that people often talk about is the prophet that was previously the president of the church before the current one was like, hey, Mormon's a good thing. We embrace this Mormon thing and we love the thing. We have the We Are a Mormon campaign, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden he dies, we get a new one. And the new one is like, oh, we are no longer being called Mormons. That's offensive. I think he even said it was a victory for Satan. But then, we are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That's been sort of his axe to grind. They've changed the logo. They changed the name of, there's no longer a Mormon Tabernacle Choir. It is the, choir at the Tabernacle. I mean, a huge thing for whatever, because that's his thing, which, people are like, what? How can it be a victory for Satan if the last prophet said it was a great thing or whatever? But again, it's interesting to watch how Mormons navigate some of those things because many people are like, and they just kind of change on a dime because they can just do it and they like to follow the prophet. They talk about it. There's a kid song about it. But other times people find it more difficult for things, right?
Yeah, you guys, Casey, all of that makes a lot of sense to me. It's certainly striking chord with me, but I know we're running long, and the most pressing question Kyle has, which I think that both of you can definitely speak to. I know he's been sitting on it for a while, is those special underwear. And why are we cutting out nipple holes
and belly button holes.
and belly
Like,
hole?
what the hell's going on
You
with the belly
guys,
button?
I don't
guys?
know where I don't know where I buried it. I don't. And my parents made us do laundry. Maybe not you, Ryan, because you're a male of the family, but me and a lot of fucking laundry, and the V's on the nipple. I'm sorry, that took a turn.
Right. I don't even
really
know if we're
bad.
going long. Ryan's like, we're not long yet. You guys showed up 5 minutes late. We've been on here for 15 minutes.
Okay. But the garments are a very confusing thing for Kyle, and I never made it to the temple. Shocker. I know anyone listening right now would be like, what? She didn't make it to the temple? That was crazy. I didn't. So I can't speak to the garments. I could just speak to the garments I was forced to fold every Saturday of my goddamn life in my childhood, and there's definitely V's on the nipples. Why?
So, as somebody who grew up with Jessica, I'll fill this one, Casey. I don't want to put you on the spot from Casey, Jessica, and Kyle's inappropriate questioning. But I just like to say, growing up with Jessica, she was the worst laundry folder I ever knew. I did 10 times the amount of laundry
That's
she
not
did.
gotten better.
It was a chore for me because they would be like, Jessica's supposed to help. And she was the worst at it. It was like pulling teeth to get her to help to do it. This whole screed that she went through where I wouldn't be asked to fold the laundry because I'm a male is just blasphemy. It is totally false. Now that the record has been set straight. So,
okay. Sure. While you're out mowing the lawn, I'm sitting there.
Yeah, and then I had to go mow the lawn, Jessica. Then I had to go mow the lawn. No, so the garments. So in the two nipple areas, belly button, and then on the right knee in the garments are symbols representing certain things. I don't remember them off the top of my head, but they're just symbolic. They're symbols. They're there to symbolize certain things. The one that I remember is the one on the knees to kneel before God, and then what the other ones represent. Nothing weird that I think.
I mean,
well, it's weird that they're there, that it's a thing, but the symbols don't represent like, some crazy idea. They're supposed to help you keep you remembering God and your relationship with God and stuff like that. So back to the episode,
why would she cut
them out?
So
when you are excommunicated or no longer going to the temple, or even if you are just getting rid of your garments, the only difference between a garment and a regular t-shirt is those symbols. And so they even will tell you that if you're throwing your garments away, that you should cut out the symbols because then they're no longer garments. And you should treat the garments with a certain amount of respect because they're there, again, with the relationship with God, remembering God. There was a certain thing that used to be very popular, like don't even let them touch the ground and that sort of thing. But that was kind of that weird thing that people would say. But, it goes along with all, I think we've talked about it before, the mythology around garments, how they protect you from evil and protect you from bad things. And there's these supernatural powers that you have. And that's why you're never supposed to let them, be sullied by touching the ground or something like that. But at the end of the day, it's just that they have these symbols in them. That's what makes them garments.
I have a question.
40-something. You don't have to raise your hand.
Not 40-something.
No. I encourage it.
For like a week. How long are the garments? I was thinking they were like boxers. They go over your knees?
Oh, no, it's like a t-shirt. It's like a t-shirt and long boxers. They go down to the knee, yes.
Like below the knee?
No.
Not modern day ones. Back at
you can't get there's a minimal length. The minimal length is just above the knee, but you can get ankle length ones too if you want. But the original ones were ankle length and they went to your wrists as well. So the traditions surrounding garments, how they should be worn and when they should be worn and how long they are and the patterns and the fabrics have changed over time, not as much as many people would want them to, especially women. That's another story. But yeah, but
I think we get.
so what she was doing, what they were trying to convey there, is that he was as an excommunicated member, which would the bishop call ahead and say, "You're excommunicated. Hey, cut the symbols out of his garments."
Okay, it's all coming together for me now. Yeah, now I get it.
That's a bit of magical reality to portray it that way. But what they're portraying was he was an excommunicated member. He would no longer be permitted, or some people would say worthy, to wear the garment. So that's what they would do. And that's how garments are disposed of: is you cut the symbols out and then you can throw them away, type thing.
Which is why he was wearing them.
Listen,
him putting them on afterward. First of all, he would have been wearing the garment when he showed up to his council, and he could have just kept the same one on. But they were trying to convey something about him losing his brain and stuff. That's why he's walking around with the weird holes.
He was drunk. I thought he was drunk the entire time. I was like, oh, that guy is definitely drunk. Like, he lost his shit after getting excommunicated and went and drank. And like, that seemed like a stretch, but like Jessica was saying, like, Dan after the parade was smoking a cigarette with that woman. Like, so it seemed kind of like trying to show him as like not a good Mormon, like kind of breaking those rules and going that way. And I wasn't sure if he was drunk or not, but he definitely
following his own rules,
portrayed himself.
Well, I think
we're trying to portray there. I think they're also trying. I think Black is also trying to draw connections between him and like David Koresh, who said, "Oh, I have to experience all of the sin in order to whatever," because they see themselves as above the law. Right, one of the excuses that he uses or justifications, like, God has blessed me with a strong sexual spirit or whatever bullshit thing. That's why I get. That's right. It was just but that's what many religious fanatics do. They excuse their own misbehavior with religious reasoning so that they can do whatever they want.
Well,
I think that's what happened with him. I don't think that's what's happening with Dan. I think Dan is motivated by rage and jealousy, like, and power. That's what he's after. Because notice he's not the religious fanatic, and they tried to draw a clear line there, because when he's in the council, he's all about the government, the taxes, the don't do this, and that's what he's pushing. He's not doing the whole polygamy thing and the child marriage thing. He never mentions it once, at least that I recall.
Yeah. Well,
are you saying Ron or Dan?
He's saying that Ron. He's differentiating between Ron and Dan.
Okay.
Yes, the one communication they showed, he's the rage, like Diana's husband, like he's the rage guy. He's not the one that receives the revelation, right? That is going to end up with the list. He's gonna do it because he has the rage. That was also came through in from the prosecutor that prosecuted it. He made it clear. He's like, look, he's the rage machine. He was mad at Diana, and he was going to his revenge on Brenda for helping Diana leave, because Diana left him, divorced him, and moved to Florida.
Well, the scene with him going around the house and the thing, I just is my reading on that was the daughter, knowing that he's a crazy person, is saying you screwed up in the worst way possible, and that's why she cut out the symbols in there. I'm going to destroy your garments because you're no longer worthy to wear them. And his retort to her is, I have done nothing wrong. I will take these garments that you've cut the holes out of and wear them proudly because I have done nothing wrong. And it doesn't. And so I think that was the thought of my mind when he's walking around like that. He's trying to show his kids, I've done nothing wrong. And
then to show that scene with the watch where, like, at the end you show it, like, it shows, was it Joseph Smith watch breaks, and so that's kind of like the passing of the torch. Like, I give you, like, this is my ring, like, this is so people know that you're coming from me and you mean good. Like,
Kyle was very
totally crazy, like,
hooked up on the breaking of the watch, and
I didn't really get it. Honestly, even at the end when they tried to pull it together, I'm like, I still don't get it.
Jessica went straight to Pulp Fiction. She's
Yeah.
like, that watch was
Did
in
they
his ass.
shove it up somebody's butt? Like, that's the only watch connection I have here. I also didn't follow the watch thing at all.
So the watch, I think, is twofold. The watch, so there was, I think John Taylor or someone was saved by a watch because one of the balls hit the watch and broke the watch and stopped the watch at exactly Joseph Smith was martyred. So like a lot of people talk about that. That's the exact time when he died because of that watch. So I think he was trying to draw that linkage because he's always trying to link the current action
themselves to.
Oh, that makes so much sense to me now. Like all of that just came together for me. Yep.
But I also think that he's breaking the watch to show that he's a violent person and he's intimidating his son. But then he gives his son that because where for Joseph Smith, it marks the death of him. Perhaps if you really want to get too artsy about it, that shows the death of the righteous Ron, Dan, I forget which one is which. I think it's Dan. Like the death of him, right? And then the birth of this new Lion of the Lord, where he's trying to be this Brigham. That's where he sort of takes the helm as the crazy leader.
Oh shit! There it is. Yeah. No, now I follow.
Sorry, City's major alert.
Yeah, I know.
Just
really
set this up for
all
book
came
2 in this
together for
fictional
me.
series.
It's real. The labyrinths are real, Kyle.
Well, even with that explanation, I still don't think it worked as well as they probably wanted it to work. But it was a symbolic. Yeah, I get it. It's a symbolic thing that things are going to be different now. I'm the new Lion of the Lord. I thought the scene with him and his father when he lets his father die was a cuckoo way to end the whole thing. Like, very good scene. I get that sentiment where he's like, when I was a kid and I needed a doctor, you don't get one for me. Why am I going to get one for you? I was like, all right, he's a crazy guy, but I get that, right?
What's interesting is I thought that scene worked really well for the show. The true story is even more difficult because what his father was dying of was diabetes and he refused insulin. So his dad actually died in the hospital because he refused treatment. He would accept chiropractic and naturopathic or whatever remedies existed back in the 80s, but he actively refused treatment for something that could have kept him alive. Oh. And so
Can I just say, in this episode,
chiropractors are awesome.
When I was if anyone else is offended by this series, it is chiropractors, right? LDS aside, chiropractors have to be pissed. No, I just gotta align you. You're all out of whack. Like, I mean, it is not helping chiropractors.
Especially Mormon chiropractors.
Northern, especially Mormon chiropractors. I mean, it's just a bad
I'm not sure what I'm doing.
I'm sorry.
Kyle wants to do a whole podcast only on Mormon chiropractors.
I've got some material, guys.
I'm just saying that they are not doing any favors to that profession.
Well,
I don't think Pretties did any favors to that profession.
Well, that is I didn't know that part about it. So, but so it wasn't that the dad was sick. It's just that they were denying him what he needed to live.
He was rejecting it too. Like he affirmatively rejected it.
Okay,
oh, the dad did?
He didn't want it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, but they did not believe in doing that. The dad was like, well, we believe in natural remedies. We'll do that. But he didn't want doctors to
Got it.
Was the dad always that way? Do you know? Okay.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Not as, but he wasn't as, extreme as his sons. Like his sons were definitely more extreme, but he was, extreme adjacent, right? And he definitely empowered it. And he was definitely I don't think he was as tyrannical as he's portrayed. At least that's what the article I read today was talking about. Like he's not as tyrannical as he is portrayed. Like Brenda actually really liked him. But I mean,
but he fostered it, right? Like he set the occasion for it.
Well,
was he anti-medicine because of being chiropractic, or was he chiropractic because of his religion? Like, what? Is there any? Okay, I wasn't sure if there's.
I mean,
a
I know.
vector of-
Look, there's a couple things. So naturopathic remedies are really strong in Utah. So there's a lot of things like that. You have multi-level marketing things with, you have doTERRA, you have what's the oil
LuLaRoe.
But a lot of that is tied to
oils.
Mormon
But
religion.
like you have New Skin, right? You have there's one down close to where my parents live, and they do all of the essential oil stuff.
Oh,
doTERRA?
Healthy living or
yes.
Young Living.
No, it's living. Oh, what is it? Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue.
Do you think there's something with LDS Mormons that like leads to that, like that influences that?
I would say more so than any other.
Why are so many coming?
Well, I mean, there's this law of health, right? There's
You're paying
like when you have the no alcohol, coffee, tea, or tobacco, right? Those things. So, and then when you try to, I mean, the explanation in the Revelation, right, is sort of simple, but then when you try to give reasoning as to why you think that's in the Revelation, that lends itself to all sorts of interpretation around it, and so you're going to be looking for those types of things. So you have scriptures that talk about health and things, and then when you have laws that make it very easy for those companies to flourish in Utah, that just creates an environment. Thank you, Orrin Hatch, for those things to happen there. So I mean, Melaleuca was huge in Utah, so like you have a lot of these.
I'm very familiar with Melaleuca.
Sure, I mean they're there
because I grew up with it. Melaleuca solved everything, Casey. I don't know what you're goddamn talking about. It's
like tussin.
It's a miracle. It had such a smell to it. Even my friends would be like, the Melaleuca house. Like it was in everything.
I've never heard of it.
Oh, well.
Is it like a powder or?
It's Young Living essential oil.
Essential oil.
Eucalyptus. I wasn't a lot of it was eucalyptus or something. I don't know.
Yeah, Melaleuca I think was tea tree and eucalyptus.
Okay.
You washed your clothes in it, you washed your hair in it, and you also could solve like major injuries with it. Like it was an
broken bone, split it up, put some Melaleuca on it. You're good to go.
Where's my Melaleuca?
So that's funny that's because that must have been after my time. I must have been out of that.
Oh, it was, Ryan. There was some dark ages.
I left and it all went to hell.
We can call them the Melaleuca years if that makes you feel better, but there's lots of shit packed into those years.
The Melaleuca years.
So I think, Kyle, like if you've read Tara Westover's book Educated, she talks about that. So like there is a strain of like there's a decent sized contingent of Mormons who are into those natural remedies and things. And so because you don't trust the institution. It comes from this, we don't trust institution, we don't trust government, we're going to find our own way type thing. And so like, her parents were very much that, and her parents actually have a company that's all about that stuff. Because if you read the book, her mother does some like natural remedies type stuff, and they've sort of capitalized on that. So anyway.
I've not read that book, but I will.
You should. It's an interesting book.
He'll listen to it.
Yeah.
He doesn't read.
I
listens to audio.
In the 2020s, reading can mean audio or visually reading. I don't think we need to judge on how you read things.
Okay.
However you decide to consume the book, Kyle, is fine.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No
open-minded individuals here, except Ryan's sister Jessica over here.
Okay. All right.
As soon as she accepts your revelation that you're the head of the household.
Yes.
She's not even my wife yet. She's still Ryan's sister. Once she accepts my revelation.
I've been trying to give her to Kyle for years now. I take no responsibility for her, Kyle. She's all yours. Quit trying to push her off on me.
Okay. We're not ending this podcast on that note. This is the episode of the woman. Fuck you, motherfucker. Seriously. All ladies, bad bitches, up in this. Like Lizzo's about to make a cameo next episode. I swear to God it's going to happen. Because the ladies be
You're
running it. I'm just saying. And to be quite honest, I will say that the ladies of the Mormon religion is what gives you guys the spice. Because I'm being very honest, the Mormon ladies are beautiful and they're graceful. I don't know that now I've drank too much. I'm saying,
Not gonna lie,
all
the Mormon girls
saying-
in my high school were attractive.
exactly. Everybody would be like, I know that one Mormon girl. She was hot as fuck, wasn't she? She was hot as fuck. Yes, she was. I'm just saying.
Ryan, you have this timestamp. He's like, all right, 10
Yep,
seconds
no.
before this.
Well,
No edits.
So-
no edits.
All right, I don't know how we wrap it up.
half
from
of
here.
all
I'm
of the
sorry.
Mormon women that I love and respect, they have way more to offer than merely their looks.
Thank Thank you. That's true. I mean, I'm
Well,
still holding.
Financial security.
Yeah.
So this one's got
So
going on.
so since this is the episode of the woman, one of my favorite stories about Mormon women, it has to bring us back full circle with
Thank you,
Emma.
Casey. I knew I could count on you.
So Emma started the Relief Society, which is the women's organization. Did it, and they were doing great things. As soon as the men found out, they're like, hey, what you ladies doing over there? Maybe we should check that out and authorize it. So of course they went over and Joseph Smith accepted it, whatever. And there's a little debate on how it all went down, but that's fine. They were doing amazing things. Like everybody that showed up to Nauvoo, because they were, lots of people were being baptized, showing up and stuff. They were giving them blankets. They were helping them out. Like they were doing
Don't tell
charitable
me
work.
this is the start of the priesthood.
No.
Oh.
So that's that. Well, anyway, so after the whole schism with stuff, Joseph Smith had no problem with women giving blessings, and there's all of those types of things. So they were doing that. So they're in Utah and doing a lot of these things, and the women were pretty powerful. Well, Brigham Young perhaps had some issues with ladies wielding power, and he didn't like it too much. So he disbanded the Relief Society for about 20 years, I think it is. One of my favorite things about that is the women were like, okay, we're going to still meet. And so they just kept meeting. So they basically ignored him. So after 20 years, he's like, all right, fine, you can come back. And they're like, as you were, ladies, we're just going to continue doing what we've always been doing. And it's funny because in the official history of stuff, they act as if it never got disbanded, right? You have to look at the histories to actually find that, because they don't talk about that much. Like if you look at the history of the Relief Society, the way they talk about it is a little interesting, because they kind of want to smooth that over, that there was this little, kerfluffle between the prophet, president of the church, and the ladies, which here are the ladies saying, we understand you'll probably figure it out later. We're going to continue doing our thing until you figure it out and show up and be like, yep, we're just waiting.
It's their Lizzo moment. God damn it. I never know. It's their Lizzo moment. God. See?
So there you are, Jessica. There's your story.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you for making that come full circle for me.
All right.
Yeah.
So
Mormon ladies.
Ryan, what other questions did you have for this evening?
no, I actually through the course of everything, you hit on everything I had in my notes about this episode that I wanted to touch on. But to wrap everything up, I was just going to give everybody a chance to say like if you had any parting thoughts about this particular episode, anything that stood out to you that we hadn't already talked about, you hadn't already expressed.
Oh, I've expressed it.
I wasn't so worried that Jessica might not have had an opportunity to express herself.
I got it all out.
Did you get it out?
It's all out.
Okay, good.
No, I'm good. I mean, that was a rough episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything from you, Casey?
This episode was hard because I hate to see people placed in impossible situations, and it's a good reminder for all of us, regardless of who you are, regardless of what associations you are affiliated with. Like, listen to the people that you're supposed to protect and serve. Listen to them and protect them, and don't and like if someone comes to you, like protect and take care of people. Like, no one should ever be forced to be in those situations like those women were. God bless them and all the power to them for their ability to like get themselves out to the extent they were. But like, no one should have to be there. And so all of us should use wherever we are to make the world a little better, so that people don't have to make those kinds of decisions, because that's terrible.
Yeah.
Here, here.
Well, I should have said what I wanted to say first. Now I can't say what I want to say after said that.
Good luck, Ryan.
All right. Okay. Everybody, thanks a lot. We'll see you later next week when we do episode 6. Bye.
Love you guys. Night.
Bye.